GM, everybody. This is Dan. I'm calling in from the woods. I'm in the forest visiting home in Canada. And I'm really excited, though, still to make an effort and have this podcast continuing and on the road. So really excited about the guest coming on today. Tommy's been hyping it up a lot in our conversations recently. And so without further ado, I'm happy to bring Warren up here. How are you doing, Warren?
Hey, Dan. Good to be on. I'm jealous here in the woods.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to be, right?
Are you a
Um,
hunter or a fisherman or both?
a little bit, but not like serious in any of them. Like family members are, and have dabbled here and there. But we might do a little bit of fishing this afternoon. It's a little like family get together going on this long bit of a long weekend for me. So looking forward to that. How about
Nice.
yourself?
And then my follow-up question, are you using Starlink? Because the connection's pretty good.
Actually, just
Just as I say that, I think we lost Dan.
Hey Warren, how you doing, mate? I thought I'd jump on the stage. Quite ironic as you said that. He literally got out.
The bandwidth gods just clipped Dan when I said keyword Starlink.
Exactly. I know, right? It was like you couldn't have timed it better. But all good. This is the backup plan. So this is why we have a background host, myself, Tommy. I'm part of the CoUnity team. Yeah, as Dan said, it's a pleasure to get you on. Really looking forward to hearing some of your backstory, touching on a few things today. I don't know if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience, give a bit of more of a backstory. I'm sure you're going to do yourself justice better than me. So go ahead, man.
Yeah, sure. My name is Warren. I'm the co-founder of IMUA. IMUA is a universal protocol for shared security. So it's implemented as a layer one, focusing on basically aggregating the decentralized trust and security of all the different major blockchains and extending it to off-chain services to build verifiable applications. So these could be anywhere from like your bridges, oracles, kind of standard Web3 crypto infrastructure to AI, robotics, Web2 SaaS platforms. So we're really extending the addressable market of what crypto can build on. So I've been in the space for in crypto for over over 12 years now, full time, and actually got started as a Bitcoin miner back in 2011. Was kind of a hobbyist for Dan's back. But I was a hobbyist Bitcoin miner for a couple of years. Then when 2013 hit, Bitcoin hit $1,000 for the first time, and I said, I'm staking my career on this technology. It's not going anywhere, and have been in it since then. In 2014, started a company called Hedgie, which was the first OTC wholesale platform for Bitcoin. So we were working with Bitcoin miners to sell direct to institutional investors and early hedge funds in the space. So we are basically trying to reduce the volatility of Bitcoin because miners at that time were just dumping on exchanges. They weren't very sophisticated when it comes to selling, and they needed the capital to fund their operations. So we shifted them from selling on exchange to selling OTC. Back then, there was no OTC market, so we were working with a lot of the major exchanges before they had OTC desks. Did a lot of great volume, ran into some regulatory headwinds with the CFTC. Ironically, Gary Gensler was the chair of the CFTC back then. People forget. So he had a bone to pick with crypto even back in 2015, 2016. So we ended up selling the technology to Wire, which was doing a lot of, was a crypto payments platform, was doing a lot of OTC stuff back then. And then I was friends with Mike and Yanni, the co-founders of Wire. So I didn't want to go work for them, but we had a good exchange. And then I went and joined Ripple in the summer of 2016, which as a Bitcoiner was like boarding the Death Star. I got a lot of hate mail. And so what are you doing? What are you doing? And I just saw, Ripple as kind of a diamond in the rough. At the time, XRP was the XRP network was, the validators were predominantly run by Ripple in a single, not just all run by Ripple, but in a single geographic location. So one of my main objectives there was to decentralize the network by expanding the topology of validators to all over the world and run by external. And then the goal was that Ripple would only run one validator, which it does to this day. And built a lot of infrastructure, built out there and scaled XRP. XRP was only trading against Bitcoin at that time, so there were no fiat pairs. So worked with a lot of the exchanges on the integration and got some fiat pairs. Now XRP is one of the most liquid cryptocurrencies, in existence. Also built out their ODL or on-demand liquidity product, and that was kind of my baby 0 to 1. Had it running on a laptop with some exchange integrations and demoed it to the rest of the team, and that took off. And now it's their flagship product, doing over $1 billion in revenue. So had an awesome time at Ripple. Spent 5 years there, which is an eternity, not just in crypto, but any job, I think, at this point. I left to work on another core problem, which was crypto privacy. So worked on a ZK privacy project for 2 years. Built a lot of really great infrastructure on selective disclosure agreements for using ZK. And we're working on ZK, not just at the software level, incrementing the actual arithmetic of zero knowledge protocols, but also hardware. So we're working on dedicated hardware acceleration, and had a great time. Crypto at the privacy space got a little hot post Tornado Cash. A lot of the exchanges were delisting privacy tokens, and so I kind of I've got a family and stuff. I had to think, like, do I want to keep going against the grain here or work on something different? So wanted to put my founder hat back on, and when I joined the project, it was already seed funded, had a lot of stuff, and my job was just to ship the network into production. And then I wanted to start something from scratch again. So, one of the core problems that I faced, and my co-founder, RJ, who is the co-founder of and CTO of Harmony, we often face just a bootstrap problem of like getting these networks up and running and in a decentralized way. So, restaking was just basically still an academic topic when we got started. Eigenlayer had proposed it, and we wanted to see restaking on multiple chains. So we started and with architectural design, published a white paper in the fall of 2023. The project was originally called ExoCore. We raised a seed round of $5 million from a lot of crypto VCs and angel investors, and then shipped a testnet, bootstrapped the validators. So we've got about 50 validators running a testnet. And then recently kicked off our kind of developer engagement with 12 projects running on what we call Ignite Accelerator program. So we're running pretty hard, gearing up for a mainnet TGE here in another couple months, and yeah.
A lot of stuff cooking. I'll hand it back. I think Dan's connection is working, so I'll jump in if we need me. I'm looking forward to this episode. It's super exciting to have you on, mate.
Good to be on.
Yeah, what an epic intro. And yeah, really funny how you were like, your connection's really good, and then it just boom went out. My phone just crashed. So anyways, I'm back now. But yeah, what a story. I remember talking to Tommy about bringing you on here and the different things that you've done. These are like not easy tasks when you talk about, bootstrapping these networks, and there's a huge incentive question there around community, right? With everyone, with people looking for yield, and I'd love to get into some of that as well. But first off, generally there's like something we like to start all the episodes with, which right near the beginning we ask everyone to define, what even is community, like in your own words. Like, how would you define community, especially tying in elements of all the experience with these different projects and stuff? How do you actually describe it?
Yeah, I'd say community is kind of simply a group of people with a shared belief on what they want to see in the future. This could be as small as like a family, as a community, neighborhood. Obviously, one of the things that has kept me in Web3. People are like, "Wow, you've hung on for a long time, bear markets, bull markets," but the thing that I always come back to is Web3 has this uncanny ability to build community, just kind of natively. You don't get that in Web 2. You work at, we're all the founders are based in Silicon Valley. We've got Web 2 companies everywhere, but none of them have a community. They've got customers, they've got users, but they can't really parlay that into a true, like, actual community. And that's what I think makes Web3 and crypto so attractive, is that this kind of shared vision for the future. And, people, just cling to that. And I think the projects that are the best are the ones that make the experience fun, in the hopes of, one day, routing it into financial gains, of course. But it's also like, I know a lot of people have been part of projects. The XRP community is a perfect example. And there's a lot of kind of dark days in those in many years, and the community is really kind of maintained strong. So it's something, I'd say at this point a lot of my friends are in crypto. Like most of my friend group is all in crypto. So it's like I can't imagine ever leaving this space because all my friends are in it. We go to conferences mostly just to meet up with friends and talk shop and talk story and just kind of do the thing. But yeah, community is pretty special.
No, it's a great answer, and like I think a lot of interesting similarities from previous guests, and that's like one of the first things everyone always mentions. It is really just like this shared kind of common unity, everyone moving towards the same direction. I think it's funny you mentioned XRP Army, and there's almost a borderline component in crypto of like trauma bonding isn't the right way to put it, but it's more like when you go through like intense experiences that are, difficult, you build like closer bonds with the people who stick around,
Yeah.
and same as you, like going through like the conference circuit, it's really like, refreshing and nice to be like for a short period of time just fully immersed with all your friends who have been through all these different times as well, right? So I think it's really neat that you mentioned that. And yeah, I'm curious, maybe like just briefly on like your history and past before we jump more present, like with Ripple and like XRP Army, like what were some of the biggest insights from your perspective that made XRP Army such like a strong, like close community?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting because like before I joined Ripple, I really dug deep and did a lot of due diligence on the technology and did a lot of research and spent a lot of time, because if you're joining a company, you're basically dedicating a couple of years of your life to this. So and what I found was that there was a lot more to Ripple and XRP than what I had heard, and even like some things that were not true. And so it really kind of made me think like, man, there's a lot of alpha here that I think I've uncovered that even smart people in the space haven't even realized yet. And so one of the strategies early was to empower the community with, education and content that was steeped in truth and, objective truth. And there's still a lot of haters and stuff, but a lot of times they just spew things that are just old kind of information that's outdated, or just kind of pure FUD. Unfortunately, it takes 10 times the effort to, dispel FUD as it does to spread it, right? So the goal was just to, empower the community with information that was steeped in truth, have consistent messaging. Ripple's not perfect. It's done, it's had its share of mistakes, just like any project. Partnering up with banks also was not like a very popular kind of go-to-market strategy. But now you see, crypto is massively institutional, and everyone's doing that. And it's to the the envy of many that Ripple is so close with all these banks. Not just banks, but Ripple was one of the first to, and don't this didn't mean to be like a Ripple shill show, but Ripple was actually one of the first to host a conference of central banks. No, there had never been a conference for central banks. We're talking the banks of all the countries in the world. Ripple identified, hey, no one's put these people together. And so Ripple hosted the very first conference of central banks, which it still runs annually to this day, and it's become super popular. But like no other bank did that. No other country did that. And just, Ripple happened to do it. And so it just kind of goes to the power, I think, of just sticking to a vision and understanding that sometimes you got to work with the machine to kind of beat the machine. And I think that's not always the most popular take, but it does work. And now we're in a space now where institutional, adoption and people wanting central bank, sovereign funds that are getting into crypto and reserve, currency, reserve funds being backed in Bitcoin. These are all like things that weren't super popular back then, but now everyone's kind of pushing them. So anyway.
No, yeah, it's a really good answer. There's some interesting things there. I think like early on too, there's a lot of parallels, I think, with like Chainlink, with the Chainlink Marines and whatnot. And one of the similar pathways is the component of like the education side of things. Like I think both jobs did a really great job on educating and like you said, educating in truth, right? Like objective, like the component of around what the technology does, not versus someone's opinion, right? And there's something to that people can really attach onto more. And then when it comes to, the people spreading the FUD, I like to think of, how can you really push certain community members to be like FUD defenders, how can you get more FUD defenders? And obviously, XRP Army and Chainlink Marines, like they both did a really good job at, building these FUD defenders, so that when someone did come in and try and spread some sort of FUD or some sort of comment, they would just get like shot down. It's just like, just get out of here or whatever, right?
Definitely. I've known Sergey from Chainlink since 2014. So back in 2014, Hedgie, the company I started, and Chainlink were the only projects that were really working on smart contracts. And this is like pre-Ethereum. So so we were just kind of exploring like what is smart contract like, and Sergey owned the smartcontract.com domain, and I kept asking like, what are you going to do with that? And he's like, I don't know yet. But at the time there were a few projects that were starting to do like oracles. And the big thing with oracles is it needed to be a decentralized network, or else people just wouldn't trust, a single oracle that wasn't running on a decentralized network. And so Sergey did an amazing job creating that network by bringing on a bunch of operator nodes, in marching fashion, and then used kind of a similar strategy to build up the Link Marines as the XRP Army did. So there's a lot of parallels there. but I respect, Sergey, and I see him every now and then, and we go way back. But it's awesome to see the success that they've had.
That's super sick lore. Like that's such a fun fact that Sergey owned smartcontract.com. That's really interesting.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah,
Well,
it was
I
good
guess
times.
yeah, I'm sure. Like and it's interesting because at that point in time too, though, no one had no idea what was gonna be coming and like what this place was gonna evolve into and whatnot. Like those are very early days. That's really impressive and wild to have known that you were in those rooms, in those circles, in those spaces, connected with these people who went on to do these like things and what you've done. And it's just, yeah, really cool having
Yeah,
that
it was
kind of
insane. So
reflection.
even like to extend this, so because we had built this like smart contract platform on Bitcoin using Bitcoin script, multi-sig contracts, and multi-sig wallets and hash time lock contracts. So it's like a very rudimentary smart contract. And Ethereum had just been proposed. The network launched in 2015. Leading up to that, we were investigating whether to re-platform on Ethereum. And we actually had a meeting with Vitalik, and he said, like, you guys are doing real volume. Don't like put real volume on Ethereum. And this is back when mainnet launches like were, it was all about achieving stability as a network, not like let's put as much money in this thing as quickly as possible, right? So like nowadays you see like mainnets launch with like 50 projects. I think Bearchain is the latest example. That would have been insane to think about back in 2015 when you have the founder of Ethereum saying, don't put real money on this yet. So we actually didn't re-platform because we were live, we were doing volume. We couldn't just like put everything on Ethereum, especially the founder of the project saying, no, not yet. So that was like very early days. People forget that.
What a call to, yeah, just being early. That's really insane. Another, I really appreciate these little fun facts. This is nice stuff to add in here. I guess like now jumping forward, 10, 11 years now. I'm curious to know, I got a few questions here that I wrote down for you around the project, around the accelerator. And then we'll move into, I'll share one little community tool and one community framework and get your feedback on like, we just share a different type of community framework every episode. And then we'll finish up with some rapid fire questions. So that's what people can kind of expect. But so jumping in into current days, around the accelerator, I'm curious, like what were, because I know you're towards the end of it right now. What have some of like the lessons that you've learned so far and like what's like the current status of it and like fill us in a little bit on that.
Yeah, sure. So we kicked off. I'm a huge fan of just accelerator programs. I've been a part of like early accelerator programs where I was kind of one of the first fellows to kind of help kickstart it. Ran an incubator, international incubator back. I mean, this is pre-crypto, back in like 2010, 2011. So I love bringing developers together, giving them the tools, not just like the tools, tech, and the docs, but actually the hands-on support, and then nurturing them and helping them build out their products. And we also learn a lot about how to improve our protocol for them and what the developer experience is. And so we get like very hands-on. So we onboarded, we did the application, got a bunch of applications in, came up with 12 that ultimately got accepted into the accelerator, and they are kind of off to the races. So we've done a series of like workshops with them where we present kind of what the state of like trust is today, like why we're doing this, and then kind of helping them to understand kind of holistically how to build verifiable, these what we call verifiable trust machines, where they're able to architect, and we can get them at, because a lot of them are early stage at the architectural level, on how we can verify some of the inputs and outputs of some of their systems. So it's been really cool. We've had 2 teams at just like the idea stage, and they've come a long way. Over 5 weeks. We've had a few that had just started writing code, and now they're deploying already on IMUA. In fact, there were a couple that deployed last night. So they're live on testnet, and it's just been awesome. And they're also pushing us, to accelerate our own time frame and to go live. And this is all leading up, to our mainnet launch. I'm very comfortable with the number 12. I feel like it's a manageable number, and we can kind of work with that. So we're trying to keep things kind of constrained a little bit until we go live, and then we can kind of open it up. But once it's live, it's a completely permissionless experience, and developers can build and deploy, and they'll have references. So they'll have these companies, and we almost had zero overlap with the use cases. So just to run it, like we had a reputation layer called Zeru, which is they're doing Z-score. We have a asset manager that's using verifiable trust to effectively improve the trust of like the Trust Me Bro fund manager, which is pretty cool. Corecast, which is a cross-chain prediction market. So like think of like Polymarket on many different chains. Trigger, which is kind of or Trigger X, which is like a developer kind of deployment project. Veritas, which is this like they call it the truth layer of the open internet. So solving this big problem over the past 2 years since we've been building IMUA is that trust in institutions is at an all-time low. So there's a kind of a survey that's done by Gallup every year, and just kind of based on like trust of general institutions like governments, universities, banks, religion, all that kind of stuff, and media, and they've all basically hit an all-time low. Ironically, the only organization that is up are police. This is in the U.S., so the police office or police forces is actually improving in trust. But this was like a big problem that's emerged, and we realized that crypto can actually help to solve this because it is a verifiable trust. And so, yeah, we've been working with these teams, but there's RPC infrastructure that's building out a couple DeFi projects that are building out DEXs using verifiable trust of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP. So Circle, which is a messaging platform, and there's a stable coin called DSC that's building out, kind of backed on shared security of all these, and then an AI agent that's working on like a DEX that basically interact with this agent instead of the usual trading platform, which is really cool. And then let's see, another Gamma protocol, which is more like a classic kind of payments protocol, and then Tessium, which is actually helping to solve projects like ours with onboarding users, because we've done a lot of, I'm sure you're aware of the Quest platforms, which were super popular in 2023, 2024, but a lot of them are just like bots. And we've actually gone through purging a lot of our community and socials to try to kind of get rid of those bots as much as possible. So Tessium kind of provides a new experience for that. But these are as you can see, there's almost zero overlap in any of these projects. And so there's going to be a reference for each one. There's also new projects that we're working with in the background in more like AI and robotics, which are also super interested in using that decentralized trust. So.
Yeah, I was literally going to follow up with tell us a little bit about some of the different projects. So I'm glad you just went and rolled into that. It's interesting that they are very, very different use cases. You often do see, I feel on a lot of other projects, more similar, people going after some of the same ideas on other mainnets and protocols and things like this. Just from the way they're structured too, it's very versatile, from the way that it works with shared security and being able to do a variety of different things, obviously. One, I
The
guess, kind of
narrative
question.
chasing is definitely a thing. It's like
Yeah, it's
you always
true. It's
get
true.
a lot of projects that just like they chase
Fencer.
narratives. They try to raise on those narratives, and then the problem with that is they get burnt out because it's not really,
Mhm.
they're not solving a core problem. They're just kind of doing what was popular at the time. But the thing is, like, narratives change, and they change faster than you can possibly pivot. And I think the thing we've been pretty consistent at with IMUA is solving these kind of core set of problems where improving trust in the world and helping projects kind of cut down the bootstrapping costs of being able to deploy. So these are problems that we've faced for years, and we want to solve them. And so that's why we're building it.
Nice. And then yeah, like on like the builders themselves, because there was a conversation I had recently with another project, and we were talking a bit around how, are we looking to attract developers or are we looking to attract founders? And it's like, how do you create systems that are more founder friendly than just like, builders or developers themselves? And I think like the accelerator route, the incubator route done in the right way is a better angle than sometimes the hackathons, because there's so many projects that just end up kind of like hackathon graveyard type of thing, right? So curious on like that kind of line of thinking. How are you also like, I mean, obviously you've got 12 really solid projects, and the founders themselves, like, and the developers, like curious on that journey, like of attracting founders to your project that you've gotten through this application, through this accelerator. How has that gone, and like what are some insights there?
Yeah, it's super interesting. You hit the nail on the head with the hackathon graveyard, and I've literally probably attended or hosted well over well over 100 hackathons in my career, probably several hundred. There was a period of my life where I was literally going to hackathon like every weekend, and I think I won an award like most likely to find a date at a hackathon, and and so it's true. Like, you go through a hackathon, you win, great, you get some prize money, and then what? There's no follow up. There's no like next steps. And so that's why we were very clear that like this program is not a hackathon, and it's also not a grant program in the traditional sense. There's a grant portion. There's if the projects go through the accelerator successfully. But what this is it's a partnership. And for us, like, establishing that partnership and that trust early on, where our engineers are on call with the project's engineers, constantly working directly alongside them, shipping improvements. We had a bug that was identified by one of the projects, and we shipped a fix within a couple hours. And so like that establishes like a strong partnership and trust model with the projects. Also, I think just we talk with a lot of actually non-crypto projects about what we're doing, and this whole notion of packaging up the decentralized trust and decentralized security of these blockchains, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, etc., and packaging that up and giving it to developers to use to effectively rent, so that they can secure some of their components within their systems. Just kind of, it makes sense for even non-crypto people. It's kind of like we explained it like this is kind of like the AWS era of crypto, where it's funny because we were talking about this, and then a couple weeks ago EigenLayer announced EigenCloud, which is about like verifiable compute and verifiable trust, and that's kind of where we're all working towards. And so these underlying decentralized security and trust of these blockchains is actually kind of like the raw material or the crude oil of crypto. And if you can refine that and make it usable for developers to use, crypto can escape this kind of this tunnel vision or pipe dream it's in, where it's only at 25, 30,000 developers, you can radically increase the number of developers in the space by giving them this decentralized trust in a way that they can consume it and use it. And the cool thing is we're building it to where they don't even have to necessarily touch crypto to be able to use it. So they can actually pay for the decentralized trust and security using, and we're kind of implementing this, but using a credit card where you can rent, say you want $500 million worth of economic security from Bitcoin, or you want a Bitcoin, half Bitcoin, half Ethereum. You can pay for that using a credit card, and then in the back end that gets converted to crypto, and then that goes to to actually seed the yield that the stakers and restakers are actually earning for backing those projects. So it's a really cool flywheel, and the more projects that we onboard, the more fees there are in the system. And historically people just kind of rely on transaction fees for some of these projects, but these are we also have transaction fees, but this is way more than transaction fees. They're actually usage fees that these developers are using for the economic security of these underlying chains. So this just kind of is grokked with a lot of even non-crypto people. They're like, you usually hear crypto, it's kind of like, you need to do a token, you need to do all this other stuff, which most developers in the world, non-crypto especially, are not really privy to. They don't really want to get into the token game. They're very risk averse. They're not, speculative anything, and they don't want their project to be beholden to some speculative asset. So this just makes a lot of sense for them. So I think that's why it's resonating with developers and founders.
Interesting. Yeah. And I guess now I'm curious moving forward, obviously these projects and Accelerator in the incubator, with mainnet on the horizon here. What do you see as in that moment? What does the kind of community action plan look like after that all goes live? How do you see that rolling out?
Yeah, so we've got a really cool, novel way to roll this out. So historically, layer one blockchains, it's a huge coordination effort with getting the validators on board, deployed, running the Genesis file, and making sure they're on the most stable version, and then also getting users kind of going. So what we actually developed is something called a bootstrapping contract. So we actually call it restaked proof of stake. So what happens is over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be deploying a contract where stakers and restakers can stake native Bitcoin, native ETH, native Sol, native XRP, and the contract opens. They stake or restake those assets. And then that goes to actually back the economic security of IMUA. Once there's a threshold that's met, then the network can initialize in a fully open and decentralized way. And what happens in the background is the validators come and they form, which many of them are already running on testnet. They now can coordinate, and there's a pause period, and then the network initializes. So this is a really cool way to launch an L1, and it gets the network participants, being the stakers and restakers, kind of onboarded, before the network's actually live, which is super cool. The kind of countdown once the bootstrap contract is launched is 30 days. So we'll have basically 30 days to accumulate and run that. And there's obviously a lot of incentives for being an early participant in terms of yield. I think some of the cool projects called it multipliers, etc. We're just saying, you're going to get rewarded for being early. And then there's a period of some lockups. I think it's 90 days where the participants will be locked up, and then they'll earn out and can claim their rewards. So it's a super cool way to just initialize an L1. We've done a couple L1s before, so we were very privy to the difficulty of it. but we were also like, we knew what we were getting into. So we wanted to do this in a way that was like a lot easier. And so hopefully other L1s can use this model because it's just a great way to coordinate all the stakeholders, in the system.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's a community strategy model that we really like, align ourselves with, which is GTC, go to community strategy. And I did a talk at ETH Denver on like GTC and GTM, and like, you need both of them together. They're both useful together. They're just different ways of approaching, how you grow. And the one method, with GTM is very like value capture. You're like capturing attention economies, these different types of things, getting people's awareness on the project. And this is like important and needed and all that. The GTC model, the main core ethos of it is value creation. So the analogy there is it's not as much like fishing for things, but creating like a watering hole, right? Where people go there and they're like, this is the place to be, like, this is great. You guys should come here as well. And you get more of that advocacy, and that's like the kind of community-led growth component that are a lot of projects striving for, right? And you touched on something there, which is like a huge piece of it around like incentive design, right? And around the communication side of things too, with a balanced mixture of like transparency on different elements to that, and going through these moments in time. We've seen so many different protocols and projects make a lot of different mistakes here, and burn some of that bridge on like either the transparency side of it or just the structure of like the incentive design in a way as well. And so I'm really curious then, like around, I don't know what you think around the whole, value creation model, GTC, go to community strategy, and then with that balanced ethos too of like the incentive design part of it and the way that you're structuring, like, like any additional thoughts or anything to riff off on that?
Yeah, and like to kind of this kind of addresses a little bit, but we recognize like also with like this bootstrapping phase with bootstrap contract, not everyone has capital to deploy, right, to like to a project. There's kind of like two forms. You have what I call the allocators, which they have capital, in terms of tokens. They want to deploy it to a project, stake it, earn rewards. So they're the ones like they have more money than time, right? And then there's another group that doesn't have a lot of capital deployed. They don't have tokens lying around, but they might have more time than money. So and I call them like the classic kind of, these are your classic airdroppers, right? And so what we did for that group, we actually designed it and built a Telegram mini app that it's a staking game. It's fun. It's basically the community created this turtle around the IMUA is a Hawaiian word that means go forward, and the sea turtles are very close, to the Hawaiian kind of lore. And so we kind of took that, and these turtles drive DeLoreans around an island where they collect shells and deposit eggs on different beaches. And each beach is like there's Bitcoin Beach, there's XRP Beach, Ethereum Beach, Solana Beach, Ton Beach. And so it kind of mimics the whole experience of staking, because as you're depositing the eggs on the beaches, they're earning rewards on top of that. So we've kind of started rolling it out with our core community on Discord and Telegram, and just kind of gradually ramping up. We'll be kind of expanding it out. We've partnered up with some other Telegram mini app games, but it's just a classic way for like, to have fun, spend some time, playing a game and get rewarded for it. And like, it's people say, oh, this is like play to earn, etc. And like, no, it's just like, it's to allocate, some of the supply to people that just have more time than money and want to have fun. And like I always say, there's like two core use cases in crypto. It's making money and having fun. And so if a project can speak to both of those, then I think that's like a winning combination. But yeah, so we kind of have two watering holes. Like one is the staking kind of operations, and then one is the the mini app game. And it was awesome, like building on this mini app. Like Telegram's got such a great integration, platform, and I mean, there's over 1 billion active users on that platform, and sure, you're going to get some bots, but this game is actually Sybil resistant, so it's like very hard for bots to actually play it and be good at it. So it's a way to also kind of do a proof of humanity, so that we're rewarding real users.
That is so cool. No, I really love that ethos. Like, I remember there was another project. And by the way, did you say they're in DeLoreans, like Back to the Future DeLoreans,
Yeah,
like flying vehicles?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing. That's
Yeah, we
amazing.
went with
I was like, you dropped it so casually. I
retro,
was like,
kind of retro wave. I basically was
yeah.
like, let's make it feel like like Honolulu in the 1980s, and like that was the
Gotcha.
design guidance, and the team just kind of went with it. So
Dude, I mean, I love DeLoreans. Like, they're like, it'd be sick to have one of those one day. And if you make any mistakes, then you can always just go back in time and fix them, right? But
that's right.
anyway, there's another project, Solana ecosystem, Sanctum, I think, and they did like some kind of things with like the cool little creatures. When you did like restaking and different tokens and different projects, you had like your little cool creature, which I think is just one of these elements where the importance of a little bit of storytelling and lore goes a really long way with some of these projects to help you kind of understand and just latch on, and like the ethos and like the kind of community profile of these different airdrop farmers and other people who have the time on their hands. They also really latch on to that lore, so I really love
Yeah.
like the fact that you've got some like solid lore around that. That's really great.
Yeah, when we were kind of in the design phase of the game, we had kind of two paths. One was like the the kind of what do they call it, the Infinity Runner kind of game, which is ultimately what we went with the DeLorean kind of racing. Or another one was like more the Tamagotchi kind of route, where you could like raise this like turtle and like feed it and take care of it. Ultimately, my love of cars, I think we just went with like the DeLorean car route instead of the Tamagotchi route. But in another time frame, I think the Tamagotchi route would have also taken off, because I think we saw that too when we were doing kind of initial research.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think that the Tamagotchi route is cool, but I also feel, I was looking at that and I feel like some people, myself included, like you get interested for a while, and then after a certain point it kind of gets boring, and then your Tamagotchi's like not doing so hot, and like it dies or whatever, and you're just like, what? It's just like, I'm just gonna ignore that now. But with something more
Yeah,
kind of consistent, and you can play in more variables, it's fun. So I think both routes are interesting, but maybe there's a good retention angle and more flexibility in some of them than the others. um,
definitely.
but yeah, I guess moving, into this kind of component of sharing a few things from our side. The one briefly, like just a little tool highlight that I'm going to drop is a pretty simple one. And it's just an analytics tool, and then it ties into a little bit of the framework as well, which is understanding a big first step of like diagnosing communities when we go in and work with them. And it's StatsBot. And StatsBot is literally just one of the best basic analytics tools that's kind of like not utilized as much as it could be, from the fact that it's like a data logger, not a data scraper. Is like, that's like the big mind shift thing. There's lots of analytics tools that are doing scraping, but it's really great to get this tool installed early on, and then it just starts logging all the activity for you, and so you get much more accurate results on some things, and it just pulls information, like a little bit more rich information that you can't even from scraping for Discord specifically. So that's like the little tool drop. I like to always just make one little tool drop, as something that we use in our tech stack. The community tech stack is also wild. I mean, there's so many community tools and products and stuff out there. So we're constantly like testing out different things and seeing which one works well. And I like to think of the analogy of like a little bit like chefs in the kitchen. There's all these different ingredients, and we're like, well, if you mix these together, like, is it a good cuisine? Like, does it go well together, or is it like this doesn't taste so good? So, but
Definitely. We've got a couple of people on the team that are kind of the tools kind of gurus, and like they're constantly like coming up with, hey, we found this new tool for this thing. I'm like, let's try it out. Like, and then we
Mhm.
will do a kind of a recap of like, because everyone's got a trial period, and sometimes we convert, into paid, and sometimes we don't.
Right.
But yeah, it's like every professional has got to have a tool set, right, and a tool chain.
Yeah, yeah.
Whether you're a developer or marketer or community manager, having the proper tools, and the tools are evolving so fast, especially with AI. It's insane. There was
It's
kind of
wild.
I think right before leading up to like 2022, there was kind of a lull in tool
Mhm,
development, and
mhm.
right around like in the COVID kind of era, and everyone's kind of using the same tool or same tools, and then now it's insane what AI has done, and but there's also a lot of grift. I think, like,
Yeah.
do you actually deliver on what you claim, and is more of this some of this like future looking. But yeah, we're always looking
Clickbaity.
for new tools.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know then too, like, before I pull up the framework side of things, like what any tools recently that you've been impressed with or that like kind of, stand out at all for you?
Yeah, so we integrated Community One on Discord. I'd say like we spend a lot of time focusing on X, and I've been on X since 2009. Personally, spent a lot of time building my brand on X, and that's kind of been the focus. And we've been, I'd say that the next to that is like Discord, and we just haven't done as good of a job on Discord. We're ramping up our Telegram presence with the mini app and like trying to get that all sorted. And so it's really difficult because you have these three platforms, and they're used in like different ways. And so we're constantly juggling three different platforms, and it's really difficult to kind of be great at all three. But we're just trying to improve, and Community One's helped us with a lot of the analytics to understand how Discord engagement is going. We've got moderators that are constantly on that 24/7. But it's also kind of helps to keep them accountable, for that. But we're like constantly looking to improve. And sometimes, when one platform starts to kind of dive in quality, and everyone's no, it's kind of a cesspool, then like a new bunch of tools come in and kind of fix those problems and clean up, give project founders ability to kind of clean it up. But yeah, it's like I said, it's juggling, and it's something that we could always like improve on.
Yeah, Louisa, Community One, she's great. Like her background and stuff with data as well is insane. I know they from a pipeline side of things with how they, do a lot of the AI and analytics and the scraping components. They've put a lot of work into it. We've had quite a few conversations and used them as well. So it's definitely a good one. I'm gonna pull a screen up here just to share this framework, and this kind of one ethos of like for me, I get a lot of value out of utilizing things from like the Web 2 world, right? I'm not sure. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Sweet. This is so CMX is a really big, like more Web 2. Bevy's actually they were acquired as well. They're like a Web 2 kind of community platform, community management experience. And there's so many great frameworks and things that they do there that I look at them and then just basically add a few different key tweaks and things. Like we're all still people. We all still have this components of belonging and shared, belong like shared direction with projects, community really, right? Where the ethos of pulling these frameworks and things into Web 3, it's not that like much of a stretch at all. There's like it's some of the stuff just makes a lot of sense, right? And so I like going through these older frameworks, and this is one from a good few years ago, and I'm just always digging them out. This is like the social identity cycle. Three main steps, looking deeply into just identifying, like look at the identification stage, looking how the person identifies with that community and how they're actually attracted there, and then looking into participation and how they take any sort of actions and participate in the community experience. And then finally, validation, how their participation is rewarded, how they feel good about it, and strengthening their sense of just like shared identity with the project or the brand. There's another more complex one that comes after this, which is like a bit of it's called the community commitment curve, which maybe we'll share in a future one, but it goes a little bit more in depth and detail on some of this process or this flow. But I really think like in general, these three main stages here are something that a lot of projects obviously like sometimes don't think as much as they could or as they maybe should. Like I asked the question a lot of time on calls, what's your community strategy? And it's usually an answer around, we hold like an AMA once a week, and so I think there's a lot of value in constantly just re-innovating and like re-engineering and thinking through like, some of these early framework and stages, like, who are these people? Like, who do they identify as? And like, what attracts them to my brand, to my project? And then how do they participate? And how do they get validation? I think there's a lot of components with, with what you guys bring with IMUA around these three stages that just make a lot of sense, right? So I don't know if you want to like comment or if any thoughts or questions or anything kind of, boiling up in your brain as you kind of hear this or see this from your project. I'm curious on your
Yeah,
takes.
definitely. I see a lot of parallels. I mean, it's interesting because like for a long time, I think in crypto kind of rejected using Web 2 tools. They're like, oh no, we're different. Every like crypto community is different than Web 2. And although that's true, there's just a lot more brains kind of thinking about user retention, acquisition and retention, kind of like other synonyms for this, right? And they're able to just kind of, I guess, tailor it more toward the crypto audience. So I think there's actually Web 2 companies that have pivoted into selling into crypto Web 3, and there's a lot of money being sloshed around in crypto Web 3, so people are happy, paying customers. But this is like totally resonates, and I think where I think a lot of like projects kind of get right, and especially on the like the first two, the identification, where people immediately feel like they belong. There's just a vibe check, that happens really quickly. And am I gonna like click with this group or not? And then like you can like make the decision there. And then it's like, okay, now I'm part of this. And then what are they gonna ask me to do? Are they gonna ask me to yap on X or engage in Discord, etc. I think where a lot of projects kind of fail is the validation part. Like there is, I think, a massive problem is like managing expectations in these projects. And I think the projects that do the best they're constantly rewarding the participants with like more than just the airdrop at the end of the road, right? They're giving them like small rewards, whether it's like roles or little like things that they can take. Like a lot of we've got an NFT collection that's going to be coming out, for the community, and like just like constantly figuring out ways that they can give to the community to reward them with this validation like along the way. And so by the time that there's some, TGE or airdrop, it's like that community feels like they've been rewarded multiple times, on this journey. So that is hard to do because you constantly have to come up with ways to kind of reward that community. And then there's the other side where like there's like no talk of any airdrop or any token or anything. And then all of a sudden one day it's like you open your wallet and boom, it's like the Uni airdrop, which was totally unexpected and because there was zero expectation. And so and it was also like zero expectation met with like massive validation, right? So like that's hard to do because everyone expects that there's going to be some airdrop. So I think the key is like rewarding them along the way, with things and just a great experience. So, but it's something we certainly like try to do as best as we can and can improve a lot. But the projects that do it the best, I think that those are the happiest communities.
Yeah, dude, that's so funny. Like I was having this very similar conversation with a project a while ago around like suggesting more intermediate rewards and things like this and fun stuff for them. Because otherwise, to your point, there's just like this bigger and bigger expectation of them jumping through all these hoops. And that's what a lot of these like projects, can do before TGE. And, the farmers and different people who are looking for to more of that extract value or get like a drop of some sort, they'll jump through all these different hoops and things, right? And then their expectation of what that reward is just goes up and up and up with the more hoops that they jump through and the more things that they participate in, right? Versus there being something for them a little bit more, tangible along the way, right? So I think I totally share that exact same belief. And then like briefly touching on this kind of whole component of like shout out to awesome guy on our team, Ezra, who runs and has designed some ambassador programs for us. And it's like one of our, I would say like crown jewels of what we're very proud of with CoUnity is building these ambassador programs. And he worked in the community space for about 6 or 7 years at Mind Valley, and he scaled their ambassador program. And very familiar with CMX and these other, Web2 community places. And just the way that I slowly kind of pilled him into Web3, and he ended up joining the team. And then as he saw like more of the tools and the more of the ethos and just like how tokens and how digital ownership and all this stuff came together, and seeing his journey over the last almost a year now, has been really, really cool. And like the excitement that he's had, and for me to like visually witness and see someone who's been very, very big Web2 community and then, make that graduation to Web3 community, to your point, it's been really, really fascinating. And the stuff that, he's working on, the stuff that we're collaborating on together, with these ambassador programs and how we're building these up for clients and scaling them has been really, really fun. And it's just an interesting testament to this component of, it all translate, and it's like there's a lot more buy-in element and just tangible results of it being a core thesis of what this technology enables, right? So anyways, I thought I would just mention that.
Yeah, if anyone has like experience in building Web2 communities, ambassadorship, like I feel like the shift from Web2 to Web3, it's like Web2, you're doing that job with one hand tied behind your back, and then in Web3, it's like not only do you have both hands, but you also have like a you've got a rocket pack on your back, and you're able to go as fast as you can, because it's just there's such a demand, for like this community aspect, and the bar is still pretty low. I think there's just a lot more that projects can do to build community. And so, yeah, it's if I had to like be reborn into the space, I'd want to come out as like a community manager coming from Web 2 to Web 3 because that's a lot of blue ocean there.
Nice. Yeah, earlier this morning, actually super early because I was traveling, I got up at 5 a.m. and taught the last week of a program we're running called Cohort, where we're training community moderators and community managers. And the first lesson was this whole like Web3 ethos and personas. And then we moved into like a little bit of Discord tooling, kind of a bit of a 101 on being a moderator. And then this last week was kind of wrapping up and how, in the Web3 space as well, there's huge opportunity to just not ask for permission and just do things and show value and like, go through some of the, like build documents and come up with ideas and just like be really present with a team or with a project. And you can get noticed very easily and, reach out or be reached out to very likely, to see like, okay, hey man, like, you're like super active and this is really great stuff that you're doing, and I think that's another kind of related component to this space too, that there's easy for you to kind of carve a little bit of awareness and build your own like path in your own career in a way, right? And community is a great place to start in that as well, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Sweet. So I guess we're gonna wrap up here a little bit. Just a couple little small rapid fire questions, not as many as I normally do. Maybe I'll just do a couple of them. So say just like first thing that comes to your mind, and keep it as brief as you can. One lesson from running the accelerator.
Doing something the first time is the hardest.
Nice. One thing that you think founders get wrong about community.
Um, community is not the means to the end, it is the end.
Mm, deep. Nice. Nice. And what is a certain Web3 or AI trend in the space right now that you think is underrated?
Um, I think the intersection of crypto and robotics is going to be extremely interesting. And I don't think that there's a lot of overlap there because roboticists are on one end of the spectrum of engineering excellence and crypto protocol engineering is on the other end of the spectrum. And so there's not a lot of overlap, but AI kind of serves as like a little bit of the bridge there, and you're just starting to see it materialize.
That's a super fascinating perspective. I'd love to see what kind of cooks and combines across those two either ends. I agree. Really good one.
Yeah, like
Okay, well,
I have
yeah,
two types of engineers I have the biggest crush on are game developers, because
right.
like just the amount of like low latency, amazing engineering they have to do. It's basically like building a crypto exchange with like super crazy graphics, and then robotics, like because they're basically combining some mechanical engineering, some computer science, some artificial machine learning, and like doing it all in the kind of meat space, which is insane. So, yeah, my dream is to work with both of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think also like I can speak to my background as mechanical engineering, got my master's degree, and I feel like the main thing really that I learned and took away was like problem solving. It's like that's you're just drilled into that every year, like with your thesis projects and going into the lab and trying things out. You're just constantly like problem solving, right? So yeah, I can definitely see how those are two really great spectrums. I guess last one, and this is always a fun one. Platform wise, Discord versus Telegram. Which which do you prefer?
Well, as of late, as of recently, Telegram, because we're launching the mini app game, and but Discord is like still pretty core. We haven't quite figured out how to nail it. So hopefully we can work with you guys and figure that out.
Definitely. And yeah, I think there's so many pros and cons to either or, right? I think the biggest thing that we're really leaning into in general with lots of projects and whatnot when it comes to Discord specifically is just implementing much more robust like segmentation. Because to your point, like there's often it's so easy to have a Discord basically just blow up with airdrop farmers and like they just pollute every single space, right? And then the actual real, validators or the real investors or the other people, they just can't like, find their own space, their own little sub community, right? But like Telegram then at the same time, super easy to pop open, very quick, very like, from a UX perspective, not as, and we're already there a lot, we're already there with our own messages with different people across the conferences and spaces and all that. But anyways, it's always a good to see perspective from people on it as well. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's an
But
easy jump in crypto because my day to day is mostly in Telegram. Like I check email once or twice a day. If someone's emailing me, I'm like, you don't get it. Come to Telegram. But yeah, it's our I think it's our smallest category in terms of the platform. So we have to do the most work for Telegram too. That's also why I picked it. So
nice. Well, I think we're good to wrap up. I mean, I love the conversation here. This was really, really great. I'm curious if there's any kind of more last words or any like, calls to action for people listening and watching this. We've got your socials going across the bottom of the screen here, so you can find where to follow you and keep your eyes peeled for updates and things. But what else would you want to leave with everybody?
yeah, I'd say just follow us on the socials below, and we're gonna be announcing a lot of fun stuff. If you go through, you'll find our Telegram, Discord, we're kind of extending a lot of alpha to those communities first, and then X kind of later, just because we want to reward some of the. I think Discord was the first platform we really started to spend resources in growing, and but yeah, definitely check us out. You'll be seeing a lot more about IMUA, and people will be talking about a lot more over the next couple of weeks. So.
Awesome. And yeah, like I don't know if you can be, no one can be as early as Warren, but you can still be early here in IMUA, right? So definitely keep your eyes peeled for their announcements and
Yeah,
stuff.
I tell people this all the time. 12 years in, I still think it's early days for crypto in general. Extremely early for IMUA, but very early days for crypto in general. So if your time horizon is measured in the decades, especially, you're early. Don't worry. Hang on. Enter and hang on.
That's great final words of motivation for everybody. I'll catch you later, and looking forward to catching up more.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dan. Enjoy the forest.
Will do. Peace, everybody.